Welcome to the Shifting People podcast, where we go deep into the weeds with leaders on the front lines of people management in the service industry. We interview the best minds in HR and talent acquisition, along with owner-operators, franchisees, and general managers to bring you real insights that you can actually apply in your business today. I'm your co-host, Derek Williamson.
And I'm Kathleen McDonough, and it's time to get to work. Today, we're with Brittany Di Nicolò Pride, HR Manager at KFC Latin America and Caribbean. Welcome, Brittany. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah,
And we're
excited
excited to look at your background. We love it.
Thanks. It's a lot of, different things, postcards, art, everything.
You curated that yourself?
I did. One of my friends who lives in Germany, she has a really eclectic home and she had a bunch of these little things everywhere. I was like, what is that? And she's like, oh, it's postcards from when I travel. And so I travel a lot and you're always trying to pick up things. And this is an easy thing you can travel with. And then I just decided to put them in different frames.
Yeah, I think we all pick up those things and then they just end up in like a junk drawer somewhere. And you actually
Exactly.
them.
Exactly.
I love that. It's going to inspire all of us to go to our little travel junk drawer and do
Yes.
something with it.
Yes, or do something besides. Yes, I have magnets, but if you want to do something a little bit different where other people can see it and it's not like, to your point, in some hole in a junk drawer.
It's a cool conversation point too, because you get to tell stories every time someone's on Zoom with you. And
Exactly.
it's the Andy Warhol. I love it. Speaking of your travels, tell us a little bit about your journey, like how you got here. Yeah.
Yeah, happy to do that. So I'm now at KFC Latin America and Caribbean and the HR manager. So I really support the corporate side of our employee population. But before this, I was at an ed tech company doing talent development and culture, which is a great experience. It was a fully global team. So that was different. You might have to be up super early in the morning, staying on super late. But I really enjoyed my time there. And then before that, I was doing my master's in Madrid in HR, which was a great experience. Really loved to travel and be in different cultures and learned a lot through the program about myself and also my classmates who were from all over the world. And then before that, I was with Yum Brands again, but with Pizza Hut for almost 5 years. And I did a lot of different roles. So about 3 of those years was with Pizza Hut Global. So supporting the global team, at the time, digital and technology, the Latin America and Caribbean team as well. So I'm excited to be back in that space, just different brand. And then I also did a stint on the US side of the business, supporting marketing, finance, development, and the food innovation team. Then I swung back to the global side and did DEIB globally, which was a lot of fun. So strategy development and all those things. And then before that, I was an advertising agency, which really helped me, I think, tap into the creative side of HR, which I think sometimes can be missing in the HR space. We're not commonly known for the creativity part, like the marketing of all the things we need to do, if it's benefits, if it's programs, initiatives. So I think it really helps build that muscle for me.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit about me. Yeah. I'm originally from Texas and I live in Miami now.
Wow. Exciting. And you have a sports background as well.
I do. So I played sports a lot throughout my entire life up until I got into college. So much so that by the time I got to college, I just wanted to be a normal kid and just focus on academics. But yeah, I coached volleyball, club volleyball for about 8 years. So in college, I also played as well. I played volleyball, basketball, track, everything. Even in college, I played rugby for a semester. So I love sports. I love what it teaches you. I love what you learn about yourself. And then also just being on a team. I prefer team sports over individual sports, but we can get into that later with another point.
Yeah, and a lot of folks speak very highly of their experience in athletics and what they've brought from it. Curious, any big highlights, especially early in your career, where you found yourself leaning on some of those experiences, or maybe any great coaches or mentors you had in the athletic side that really influenced your kind of views on all the many roles you've taken on?
Yeah, I think the one I was just talking to someone this week, it's like the discipline and the resilience that sports teaches you very early on. It could be the little things like you get to the court an hour before you have to start pool play. And if you don't get to the court an hour before, the whole team runs. It's not just you, it's everybody. And I think that's very early on, pick that up because you don't want to be the person on the team that's making everyone run or do some type of punishment. And then I think also the ability to go after a common goal and put all of your differences aside, whether that's where you come from, your race, your ethnicity, all those things, you're going after one thing, and that's to win. And for that moment in time, when you step on the court, when you step on the pitch, that's all that matters. And it's like everything around you, the world, the noise, the politics just goes away, which I always loved about sports. And then I think also, like to Kathleen's question about how I love team sports. So I always knew that I can't do this alone. Everyone has a role to play on a team, even if you're on the bench. You being an encourager and being okay in that moment of being on the bench, because you might be right in the bench, but you might be the star player the next time in the game. Understanding like your role and that it might change throughout your career, your team, your time as an athlete, I think is really important. And then I think the other thing is that I've learned from like a recruiting lens or even just like in corporate space is talent may get you on the team, but it won't keep you on the court. So like I think you can have the best talent, but if I know where I saw this in kids, it was like they had very toxic behaviors that I knew was gonna, it's like a virus. It really can poison the rest of the team dynamic. So I'd much rather prefer maybe going someone with less talent, but that is more coachable, that's not gonna have that impact on the overall team. So those are some things that I've learned and maybe how I take it into the HR space as well.
Yeah, pretty major takeaways. And then I'm curious, I'd love if we could weave this into as well
Yeah.
the marketing background that you spoke about and the creativity side, which I thought was really interesting. And really, like at its core, HR people functions are about people, which
Yes.
kind of it lends itself to creativity. People don't really talk about it. But I'm curious if you could tell us a little more about that as well, and maybe some examples of like how that shaped your lens on things.
Yeah, I think for the marketing side, it's like to your point, like the people, but you're also trying to get people to do things, whether that's for the company, whether that's for whatever it is, you're trying to get them engaged and get them involved. So I think where marketing can come in is how are you doing storytelling? That's an easy point. Like how are you showing and highlighting career growth and opportunities? That's bringing in someone and highlighting their story and what has their career been like within the company, but then also outside of the company. And how do you market that? And how do you connect the dots for people to understand what's available to them? And then not just in a pamphlet, not just in, hey, it's open enrollment, but it's also getting down into what is this? How do you market to the audience that you have, your team? Like, even for example, I have the Latin America team right now. And when you think about that, you have some people who might be not from the US, Latin America and Caribbean, it's in the name. And they might not know things as simple as like taxes, like how to fill out your W-2 form, or what's the best approach to how do you fill it out and make sure you don't owe taxes, or like where should you be taking out more money? And it's just like those things are very much tailored to the audience that I have. So how can I help them and make it an enjoyable experience and feel like they understand what they're doing? And maybe that's bringing someone in externally and doing a session for them. Here's how to simply fill it out. Here's what you should be watching out for, getting a tax person, but that's very specific to that team. And I think that's part of marketing and tailoring it to your audience. I think that is a big piece of HR that I think we can throw a broad blanket over everything, even in benefits, and expect everyone to have the same experience, the same needs. And that's just not the case. And I think that's where marketing really comes into who's your consumer? Like, what's the data points as well?
Yeah, I think that I love that point. It really lends itself to like maybe like a good HR team or person versus a great HR team in person.
Yeah.
It giving the facts versus storytelling and making it for the person and making them realize like how important it is and
Yes. Yeah.
translating it to the way that they relate to and understand.
Yes. Exactly.
And because you mentioned the Latin America and Caribbean that you're doing now, but you've also done a lot of supporting global teams, right?
Yeah.
I wonder, and this is a little bit of a pivot from Derek's question, but culture.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it looks a lot different when you're supporting a global team versus a team in America. How do those differ? What are some of the things you notice and see there?
Yeah. I think I think one of the challenges that I've seen is that, especially if you have a US business and you're dealing with like global, again, it's that blanket approach to this is what works for the US, but maybe it doesn't work for other countries. And anything from time zones to benefits to cultural sensitivity around things like, and you really have to be aware and you have to have relationships with people who are local. Because if you don't, then you're going to miss something, a nuance that you just don't understand because you're not there. You didn't grow up in it. And so I think that's where sometimes HR can miss, is that making sure that you have a localized approach if you're a part of a global company.
Yeah. I think that's a really good call out. And what's interesting is it doesn't necessarily apply to just companies that do business in many countries, right? You have cultural considerations within different regions within, and I'm sure many of the folks that listen to this might be just like multi-location, but
Yeah.
even just from city to city, right? Being thoughtful about to that theme we're running with, right? Which is
Yes.
one size does not fit all.
Yes.
And so it's interesting, right? Like your background describes HR is this blend of an understanding of teams and like objective outcomes, but also there's also the creative side and the sort of understanding human behavior side.
Yes. Yes. And what you talked about behaviors, culture is a lot about behaviors, and it's like what you do and don't tolerate. And it's also the things that you don't, that aren't in your values, that aren't the unwritten rules. You know what I mean? And if you don't really foster the culture that you want, then it becomes what those behaviors are. And people just see, they're observing, and that's okay. That's how I should be operating. This is what's acceptable. This is what's not. And so like really you have to hold people accountable to that. And because then it's that quote of culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you don't have a culture and you have an amazing strategy, it's never going to work. It's just not. And that's the sad thing. I just don't think enough people think about culture in a very intentional way. It's not just like what they say about like the ping pong table, the snacks and things like that. It's all about the behaviors, and not just one time, it's over time. What are those behaviors and what are you rewarding as well?
Yeah. There's so many like most companies nowadays, right, have these like aspirational values, right?
Yes.
And the cliche ones are like
Yes, it is.
service, and
Yes.
many of them are almost wallpaper.
Yeah.
Whereas to your point, culture is actually, it's not what you say, it's what you do.
Exactly.
And I'm curious, and this is maybe, I don't know if you've had any experiences where you've had to try and reshape a culture that maybe had some bad habits or ingrained problems in it. But maybe even if we can just think of the hypothetical, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, like, how would you tackle something like changing a culture, right? Where there are maybe some behaviors that are starting to go south from like maybe what the original values said.
Yeah. I think it goes all back to relationships, and HR doesn't have the best stigma all the time. Okay. Frankly, a negative stereotype. And so I think how I built my career is just starting with the relationships, from everyone to admin to executives. Some people are like, oh my gosh, I've never met my HR unless it was for something bad, like I'm some performance issue or someone's getting fired. And so it's like if you remove that fear and immediately, and it's just like you have the relationship up front without any consequences coming with it, then I think you're able to go in and assess the health of the organization and the culture through the conversations and the relationships that you have. And so you can already build that trust to then move towards change. And I think it sounds so cliche and probably super simple, but I think like literally that's the first part, is having the relationship. Because if you go in it and there's something wrong with the culture, and you just put a strategy in place and something on paper and then present it, and they don't know you other than a comment that comes out about benefits or performance, what's the likelihood of that actually doing anything? So it starts in the little things, the details, building the relationships with people. And then also, I think with the leadership team, holding a mirror up to them of, this is what we say, but here's what people are actually experiencing. And how do we bridge the gap? Like, what's not working? Are we rewarding people for the things that we say we value, or are we rewarding people for actually performing and doing the work and not how they do it? To your point earlier, which is really like in the how is like really where culture becomes where you can see it come to life, which I think is really interesting because yes, you're getting the results, but did that person leave a trail of destruction and professional trauma in the wake of that? And are you aware of it too? So I think like when you have a good HR person, they're like on the ground. I remember there was a CPO or someone that said it in the executive team, like they Brittany understands the pulse of the business. Like she knows what's happening and talks to people, and she knows the things that I can't see because I'm up here and they're not down into the weeds with the people who are doing the everyday work. So I think that's a really could be a superpower for an executive, and it's having someone that's really ingrained into the culture, into the people that and you can have an honest conversation with them. Hey, what's really going on? What am I not seeing? What am I not hearing? I think is a great thing to have in your back pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, it really shines a light on the value of I prefer to use like now because HR has that stigma, right? Like just
Yeah.
people, the people function too,
Yes.
right? I think more accurately describes what that partnership can look like.
Yes.
And like you highlighted, right? How often do you see like a big executive change and then that executive comes in and in the first month they're like, we're going to change
Yeah.
our culture completely. And everyone on the front lines is just, what
Yeah.
is this, right? And so to be thoughtful and do it well is really leveraging your HR business partners, your
Mhm.
people, and allowing it to spring up bottom up. And that's how you get a hold on what is the culture now? Where are we misaligned, right?
Yes, exactly. And if there's anything wrong with your people team, if people are leaving your people team, then that's also something that you should be super aware of and assessing like why is that? Because that can also signal to the rest of the organization that the people team that, is supposed to be here for us is not something's broken. How is that going to impact me and my experience here at this organization? Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. And I think pivoting like a little bit, but I think another important aspect of having a people function that is very ingrained in the culture and is talking to the front lines and the managers
Yeah.
constantly is recognizing m- maybe more quickly or more accurately
Yeah.
who needs people that are ready for promotion, whether that's vertically or horizontally, people that are doing a great job, recognizing that and promoting from within or growing people in a way that makes a lot of sense. And you have a lot of experience in that. If you tell us a little bit about how you've done it before.
Yeah. So just with moving people internally, what I found is that some organizations like relationships are currency and not everyone has the same amount. Not everyone has the same amount in their bank. And so in the HR world, you're exposed to so many different things. Like you're behind the scenes of the organization. You understand how the business is working, who's where, what they're doing, what's their performance look like. And then you're to the point of having the relationships with people, like you understand at an individual level of where people are wanting to go. So you can have those conversations as a project is jumping off, a role is going to be opened and it hasn't been posted yet. So you're in both worlds and you're straddling it. And so I think a really great HR person is someone that uses that knowledge for good and doesn't gatekeep what they know, whether that's an individual who's like looking to move within the company to another role, or that's in the room of, hey, there's a project, there's a role being opened and connecting the dots of those two. Hey, I have someone who's really interested and is a great performer, but just hasn't had the opportunity. You have this over here. What do you think? Can we connect? And it's fun to be a dot connector of people and talent. And especially in a super large organization where people might not know what they don't know. And I think a lot of times your manager manages you, but you manage your career. And I think sometimes people forget, oh, I'm going to come in and everything, there should be a program for me to move and all of those things. And a lot of it is on you and knowing the right people and being in the right place at the right time. And then I think HR can really help people get to where they want to go with the knowledge that they have that a lot of people aren't. don't have access to or are exposed to.
Yeah. And it sounds like that can almost apply. It's interesting because when we go even down to like location store level
Yeah.
kind of things, a lot of the time the general manager, the store manager ends up being like has a bit of an HR hat, right? Like it's one of the many roles
Absolutely.
that they haven't. But it's interesting because I think that's maybe probably one of the biggest things that a lot of managers can maybe develop more is that ability to connect dots because we've talked about it before we started recording as well, right? Just the reality is that in some cases, like there's only so many manager positions that like
Yeah.
this vertical track, especially within a store, if a manager can recognize, hey, this person they're already doing our store social media. They already have
Yeah.
a knack for marketing, right? Like maybe
Yes.
there's a horizontal jump.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like what your thoughts are on how do you start to educate managers on coaching that a little bit more effectively or highlighting that or what, and just any thoughts on that? Because I'm thinking the smaller organizations that maybe don't have all of these functions, all of the supports. Curious, where does your head go in terms of where would you start?
To your point, I think there is a cap. Mobility is only possible with a space opening up sometimes. And so how can you still grow someone even if there's not a role? So again, the creativity piece. So is there a stretch assignment that they can do? Is there someone that's super strong in another skill? Can they shadow? So many things that you can do to help them grow and be prepared for when the role does open up instead of being super reactive when you have a role open up and it's just, oh my gosh, who can do this, and then you look at who your potential bench is and you have no one, you have some skill gaps or no one can immediately jump into the role when you need it. So how can you be proactive? And I think it's easy to just get into that this is working, someone's here, and naive thought maybe they'll be here forever, and that's just not the case. So being super proactive of making sure people are having the experiences to get them prepared for when the role does open up. Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you for humoring it was a weirdly posed question on my part, but I love the thoughts on that and trying to think of folks coming in with it like different lenses, different size organizations, right?
Yes.
What can they pull as well? I wanted to ask something that kind of ties a few things together, right?
Okay.
Both the culture side and then also what we were just talking about in terms of career pathing and thinking about
Yeah.
that, which is just like I know you've touched a lot about like engagement, right? Employee
Yeah.
engagement, and some organizations may not have the capacity to do like necessarily like formal engagement surveys with
Yeah.
employees,
Yeah. Yeah.
others may, but I'm curious, like, where does that come into play? What have you seen go well with that? Maybe what doesn't go well when you're trying to assess like an engagement survey is somewhat a good way to proxy like how's the health of our culture.
Yes.
But I'm curious, like, what are your thoughts on where does that fit in?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a definite data point that can really help inform, how you do your work, how your business runs. And I think if your organization is small, there's still other ways. If you can't afford like a big engagement survey platform or system, you can do something as simple as Google Forms, Survey Monkey, like again, getting creative. Like what can you do with what you have? And I think the other piece is engagement, like one, you have to take the result and you have to do something. That's a big piece. You can't just expect people to fill out a long survey and then not do anything. That again, that goes back to the trust piece. People already, the negativity that comes from HR and the stereotypes is, oh, another survey that no one's going to do anything with the data with. So first thing, you have to do something with the data and you have to communicate what the results were and ensure that people understand that it is anonymous. Because once you lose the trust in any part of the engagement process, check, it's gone. That is what you're looking for. That's what you're testing through the engagement survey. And a part of the test is like, what are you doing with the information? That's a test on the organization, not the data. But I think you have to have some action plans and it has to be something that is doable. So you can't go after everything that's wrong on an engagement survey. What are the things that are most likely going to move the needle? And that's normally like that you can really focus on. Because not only are you trying to do engagement, but you're also trying to do everything, all the other business priorities that you have and goals. But how does the working on engagement also informs how you're able to reach the goals?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you say that, and this might sound silly, but if you ask the questions, like a bunch of questions about maybe potential like problems or issues that are happening, and you don't have then go and address them and fix them after reminding people about them, right? You're getting them worked up and frustrated and having them talk about it. And then when you don't see the result of something happening, they might not have realized it until they remembered it again because of your engagement survey.
Exactly. It's and someone has some type of comment, you're wanting them to rehash it every time and then not doing anything about it or saying like dismissing them. It's like the same thing when you sit down and you think about your experience and if it's not good and you're having to rehash all of those things that are impacting your experience in a negative way. And then on top of that, you're not doing anything about it.
That's
That's,
tough.
that's
Yeah.
not a good.
Have you ever seen that happen and there be like turnover because of it or because of, but like correlating around the same time as an engagement survey? Maybe it's not that direct. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. But I think also how you go about doing your survey is also important. So maybe, and if you pay attention enough, maybe you notice an engagement survey is coming off that hot for some or something that's going on. That's intentional because people are going to probably respond to the survey in a way that might be more positive because they've just come off of a really great experience. So I think you have to be really objective of also the timing of when you do a survey. So you can really understand like what's going on and not just because a great event has just followed.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And like sometimes it may be subconscious, right? Like folks are not, they're just not thinking about the timing and it goes out right after the annual retreat, right?
Yeah.
Because we're thinking about culture and, oh, this would be great.
Yeah.
It seems as well, one of the things that maybe you can comment, I don't know if you've seen it firsthand, but you do sometimes see organizations try to do bonuses or things like that tied to certain employee engagement scores, and probably well-meaning, right?
Yeah.
In theory, a manager should be able to keep the people that they manage happy, but I'm curious what you've seen with that.
I haven't seen that done. I've been in some organizations where they were maybe in the process of doing that. So I haven't had any direct experience with it. But I think to your point, I think it's a good idea in thought, but also like in practice, what does it really do? Does it really make the manager own the engagement of their team? Does it seem like something that's performative from the employee standpoint? Like, what does that really look like? I'd be super curious to see if it really does impact a team's experience. If their coach is expected, their manager is expected to get a bonus based on the engagement.
Yeah.
And then it's like inauthentic. Because like, why are you like, do you really care about me and the engagement of our team? Or is it just because this is tied to your bonus?
And I'm sure similar to this sort of timing issue, you may have managers that the week before buy everyone pizza or whatever. Like you can have some gaming, it can go wrong. It feels like it's something that maybe should be part of an overall performance review for a manager, but it shouldn't be maybe benchmarked on a specific score because then they're going to game it.
Exactly. Yes, I think it should be just woven in. This is your expectation as a manager and as a people grower. This is just what you should be doing already. It shouldn't be something that's decoupled and separate.
Yeah. It should just be par for the course. It's part of their job and of their job. Yeah. And pivoting a little bit, as we like start to wrap up here, I really want to ask about and this isn't like a businessy thing, this is a more personal thing, but you mentioned before that you have at the beginning of the year, you had a list of things you want to do and manifest. You're doing all of them. Those things I think are pretty inspiring. I think there's been some people talk about how they write something down, they print out a picture of it, they put it on a wall, and it happens for them, right? There's real power to that. If you don't mind sharing some of the things that were on that list that maybe accomplished, or just in general, some of the things on that list, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I love what you said about the manifesting and writing it down. I always think about Jim Carrey, and I don't know if you've ever seen that video of him like writing the whatever amount check and he kept it for forever, and then he could actually like later on like cash that check. Like, and I really do believe like writing things down, speaking things into existence. And I feel my life has been a testimony to that approach. So something I would love to do is do some type of podcast. I love film, and I always see HR things in film. So highlighting how to team dynamics, leading, issues in the workplace, all of those things I really enjoy. Also learning Spanish. I would love to be fluent in a language, and I think Spanish is like one of the best routes I can go. So I'd love to do that. And I'd also like to write a book someday. I don't know if it's about me, my life, my travels, or if it would be something sci-fi related. So I really like sci-fi movies, and I love to read. I really love to read, like ever since I was a kid. So yeah, those are some of the things that I am manifesting.
I love that. Those were all such amazing things to manifest, right? Those are learning new languages, they're all so creative. Like to go back to the beginning, you have such a creative background. You're a creative person in general. And there's tools that like can make things that years ago might have seemed like a little bit out of reach, even though they're like something you want to do, like the video stuff, make it a lot easier to do that, right? If we don't spend the time these days.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's so much opportunity out there. There are so many resources and tools that can help you do things that I probably like wouldn't have been able to do, or would have taken a lot more work in previous years.
Yeah, absolutely. Even just like learning Spanish, learning new language, rolling like those 5 years ago, those right around. I don't know when they came, but yeah. And another thing that I wanted to just highlight is you posted recently on LinkedIn about a little like initiative you're doing of helping people in the job market. Tell us a little bit about that so people know.
So yeah, I decided to make this post, and it was something that I'd been thinking about for a while. So my mom had retired from a company after 30 years. She went to another company for a couple of years, and she was laid off, and she was just like lost. She was lost. She didn't know where to start, what she wanted to do, what her ambitions were. And it was very much, man, mom, you can do anything. If you go try something for a month and you can change and do something else. She was retired. It was just like she wanted to do more. And I think helping her through that experience like really opened my eyes to some of the challenges. One, older generations getting back into the workforce and it being completely different. Having to brand yourself on LinkedIn, your resume, you haven't touched your resume in years because you've done in a company, and it's just been the opportunity arose and you put into that. So as part of that, I wanted to do something that helped people, especially in this job market. It's super tough. And not only is it older generation, it's younger generations just getting into their workforce. It is all kinds of things. It's people maybe in the US and not understanding corporate America and how to navigate. I was just talking to someone about that. And that's another big thing. Sometimes the cultural dynamics, like I come from this culture and you don't tell your boss like what you want to do and how you want to grow your career. You don't do a skip level and go to the next person. What does it mean when you step into the US and navigate your career? And I think, and I've always loved this part of of HR is again, connecting the dots for people. So like, I love to do intros or then if someone's in my network and they see someone that, there's a role open at their company, or they just want to talk to them and have a coffee chat about their career. So yeah, I'm offering until like through the end of January, it might be more, but just, hey, send me a message on LinkedIn if you need help with your resume, LinkedIn, storytelling, branding yourself, or yeah, anything related to that. Or you just need a thought partner. Hey, I'm going into an interview. Can we practice? Or what do you think about this opportunity? Or just talking through your career as well. So that's what I'm offering.
That is so cool. It's so selfless. It's really hard out there right now for people
It is.
that are unemployed, searching for jobs. It seems it's impossible to find one these days. And
Yeah.
even just knowing that is available and that people care about them and are offering that is really important. Even if someone doesn't take the step to reach out and take advantage of it, just knowing that those things are available and people realize that the situation is tough and want to help. It's really important. I love that. We'll share the LinkedIn post. We'll put the link to the LinkedIn post there so people can comment or message you or get in touch, however, send a carrier pigeon, whatever. I hope a ton of people take you up on that, not to create too much work for you, but also because I think people need it.
Yes, they do. They do.
Brittany, this was an awesome conversation. Thank you so much. I know this happens every time we do these because we only get to skim the surface.
Yeah.
And culture is a whole like we talked for hours about company culture and those kind of things and many of the other topics. But I think you did a really good job. Like we did pull out some recurring themes, right? Like the value of the importance of trust. And if you don't have it, all of the same things, the tactical things, are going to yield very different results. And that was definitely a big thing that I pulled out, as well as just the importance of using the people function of your business for good, right?
Yes.
Rather than the policy enforcers or the people that have to go deal with conflicts. And so I think it was really valuable and applicable to folks in organizations as large as the one you're in, but also down to even just like store level, right? If you're running one store, I think there's still some things people can pull. So really, thank you for sharing all of that today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye for now.
That is such a selfless thing to do, to put out there just, hey, for free, anyone who's struggling in the job market, I'm happy to help you in any way. I think that is so cool.
Yeah, agreed. And I think lots of people say it. And sometimes on like something like LinkedIn, it's like a empty platitude, right? It's like, I'm here to help. But Brittany made a point of wanted to bring it up on this as well and really let people know I actually mean this. I'm sincere, which is telling to the type of person she is.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. People say it just to say it, and maybe they do have some meaning behind it. But you find that often when they do that, they keep it vague. They'll say, anything I can do to help anyone. And right
Right.
now she's serious about it because she lists examples and ways she can help. And 4 or 5 different ways.
Yeah.
That's so cool. We'll put a link definitely to her LinkedIn post about it so you can reach out.
Yeah. And you know what? There is a cool like lesson there, which is just a more general thing. And I found this like in my personal life as well recently, right? And so this applies to like managing people as well. There's a big difference between let me know if I can help versus like observing a situation and saying, hey, I think you need help with this. Do you want me to help? And in some cases, maybe not even asking for permission. We had friends recently, we had a issue with our house and they were just like, we're coming over. We're going to come over and help. But there's a good lesson in management too, right? Because it's very hard for people to ask for help, especially something like there's a lot of, I think, like people can start to feel shame and embarrassment or whatever it is, like with some complex emotions when they're looking for a job. And so anyway, I think but there is a broader takeaway there too.
Oh, you're so right. I think that applies to every aspect of any work environment or even friends too, right? Offering a general help is never going to be as good as giving either specific examples or saying, I'm doing this for you, like just like doing it without asking, or just jumping in somewhere unexpected that they don't even realize. And then you did it and they're happy. I love that takeaway. And I think maybe that's a bonus extra shifting question, right? Is where can you do that? Or maybe the next time you go to offer help, instead of keeping it general, try to be really specific or don't offer it, just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. That kind of came up organically, didn't it? But I think it is a really good one. And we covered a lot of other really good stuff, right? A lot on culture. There is an abundance of content we could talk about with culture. And Brittany, I think, just has such a cool lens with her early background, but then like she's worn the hat in several different organizations. And I think has been fortunate to work in some organizations that have a good, healthy culture and being able to see what that looks like. So I thought that was really useful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I love the way she thinks about things. I love the way she provides examples and Yeah, the creative stuff is really cool too.
For those who aren't familiar with it, shifting questions are a takeaway, but we frame it as a prompt and we try and make it so that anyone listening can apply it in their business. So we contextualize it and make it a little action oriented. That's the goal of the podcast in general. And so we want to make sure that folks aren't just consuming, but they're actually putting things into action. And with that said, Kathleen, what is your shifting question for Brittany's episode?
My shifting question, Brittany's suggestion of having people that are ready for it shadow other roles or higher positions or cross-training people so that when there's an open position, you have someone ready. And I actually think we've brought it up maybe once in a past episode too, of having a bench almost of people ready to go for a position that are already prepped for it, have those skills. And so that when you are hiring, you don't have to look to the outside. You have someone ready to go. So my shifting question would be, that might sound hard and lofty. Is there one person you can start doing that with? Or if you're in an HR function, can you encourage your store managers to do that with one person?
Yep. I like it. Very simple way to start, specific.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think, yeah. And to your point, it doesn't, if you're thinking about like managers and you already have a manager, but you always want to have folks that are ready to step into roles. Maybe that manager gets promoted, whatever it is. You don't have to fully cross-train them in all things management. To take some micro skills and allow people to get cross-trained in those, or just take on like little projects that allow them to work towards that. And so there's a lot you can do with that.
Yeah, or even just have them just maybe once a shift go over something that you do in management with them. Tell them a little bit about it, or just like little stories or things you do. Sharing knowledge is where to start.
Yeah.
Derek,
Amen.
what is your shifting question?
I always get to go blast on these. We'll have to switch it up next time. The other big theme, there are some cool things and some really important ones. We talked about engagement in a couple different lenses. Brittany talked about the idea when we're talking about culture and how you can leveraging your HR people, your people, to really get a sense of what's going on beneath the curtain, behind the curtain sort of thing, like the folks on the front line, like how are people feeling? How are certain messages being received? Like those kind of things. And then we also talked about it in more of a reactive way, if you will, which is like through surveys and things like that, like employee engagement surveys. And you can, depending on the size of your business, like some it might be like person-to-person interactions, and some it might be doing something more at scale, like an engagement survey. But my shifting question is, how are you really capturing and monitoring employee engagement? And I think the monitoring piece is really important, right? Like it's got to go beyond just like the casual check-in of, hey, how's it going today? And person says good, and that's not a check-in. And whether if you're able to do one-on-ones with folks, if you're gathering that data more qualitatively, but like actually tracking it and tracking patterns, I think is really important.
Yeah. I think two things that I love. One is the monitoring piece. I think that's important because you, like we talked about, you can have an engagement survey go out the week after you do a team offsite, right? Eh, it's going to be positive, but you don't know really how someone's feeling unless you get their you take a pulse over time, right? I could be really happy today. I could have a terrible day tomorrow and be really sad, right? Like that or at work you could have a great day and then be really frustrated with a lot of things the next day. So it really negatively and positively can shift. So getting the middle, getting the to the root of it is monitoring over time. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's lots of ways you can go with it. It's not a one size fits all in terms of how you gather that information. But it's just so important, right? Because if you don't really have a handle on it, it's really easy for things to shift, right? Morale to just, we're heading into January, which is often a slump kind of time for everyone. And you may not notice it. And to your point, if you can shape it where it's a more frequent pulse check in rather than one giant survey once a year that's maybe timed not too well to get real data, Like
Yeah.
that's the more important part. So think about that, right? What
Right.
makes sense for your specific business?
Yeah, and if you're not doing it already and you want to start, like, I'm sure there are technologies out there that'll make it easy for you.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Almost like we might know one, but
Yeah,
we won't say it.
no, ask us for suggestions. I think that's a fair thing to say is if you need any suggestions, let us know and we're happy to suggest them.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. I think a great episode again, covered some different material than we have in other episodes. So I think we're still adding new information. But for now, thanks for coming to work with us.
Bye for now.
Bye for now.